The next catalyst seems to be this vote on a 2-year budget deal, which seems to damn buyers or sellers alike. The market will fall if it doesn't happen. The market will fall if it does. Republican Governor Matt Bevin, he's obligated in Kentucky and elsewhere to have a balanced budget one way or the other. Our federal government, not so much. So, Governor, we're wringing our hands as to whether they're going to pass something that will add to spending or not. And the market might punish them regardless of if they approve it or not. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I'm concerned about it. I think increasingly we've got to be realistic with respect to the amount of debt this nation has. If we were not the world's reserve currency, this gig would have been up long, long ago. And you've seen them moving their way about. People are now passing around these multi-billion-dollar notes that were what became the currency in countries like Zimbabwe. And people want to belittle that and say, well, we're not Zimbabwe. Yeah, we're a much larger, more global version of the very same thing. And the event would be catastrophic if we were not the world's reserve currency. You can't have $20 trillion in debt. So my 2 cents worth, I'm not that impressed with the idea that we're going to jam another $300 billion worth of spending down the throat to the American people. And the fact that we're using the military as the spoonful of sugar to make that medicine go down is wrong. I would say that, indeed, if people want to support our military, and we should, and we need to modernize and well-equip. I'm a military veteran, so I have a little bit of bias there. I appreciate the significance of it. Do that as a standalone vote. If you want to put $160, $180 billion there, let that be up or down. Don't put a bunch of pork and a bunch of fat in there to get the votes needed to do what everybody would do if it were done by itself.
You know, I was talking to Congressman Dave Bratt, a very conservative member of the so-called Freedom Caucus, 40 Republican conservatives strong, not keen on supporting this. In fact, he added, you know, Neil, there might be 40 to 60 others against this. So this could potentially fail in the House unless Speaker Paul Ryan is able to muster enough Democrats to compensate for that. So let's say it passes through all of that. It sounds like you wouldn't like that either.
Here's the thing to understand. Victory does not simply mean passing a bill. If passing a bill is the measure of success, we have gotten too far afield. The bottom line is, what is good for the American people? What is good for the long-term financial health of this nation? And we have $20 trillion in debt. I'm amazed that at any interest level, anyone in the world still buys our debt, apparently with the impression we're going to pay them back. We get to print it and give them more of this fake money. Increasingly, it's getting to the point where it's implausible that we can pay them back. It is now multiples of our actual ability to produce that wealth if we were to apply every cent of the GDP toward debt repayment. This is becoming a problem. And I would encourage people in the House to hold firm, challenge this, Republican and Democrat alike. This is not a partisan issue. The bottom line is this: we have a debt problem in states like ours. We don't have the luxury of printing money or borrowing it indiscriminately. But I'll tell you what, at the federal government, we really don't either. We just get away with it because we're the world's reserve currency. But that gig will be up soon.
You know,
I would
another
encourage
gig
the
that
House
would be,
to resist.
I apologize, Governor. Another gig that could be up is this low interest rate party we've been enjoying for upwards of a decade now. And it looks like world central banks, not only ours here, but across the globe, are saying, well, that stops. Now, we watched England very closely today. They opted not to raise rates today, but they telegraphed that they are going to go up, just like our Federal Reserve has indicated they're going to go up. So the punch bowl has been taken away that has gotten us used to these ridiculously low rates. I don't know what the equilibrium is, but it's going to be higher than what we're getting used to. So then what?
Look at the returns in the market. What has been driving this growth in the market has been in large measure the fact that there is no yield anywhere else. There is none of the historic ability to invest in any kind of a fixed instrument at all, to get any kind of a return that would give you the belief that that's a safe place to be. So if you are retired, if you are any fixed income, you have been driven to the market as the only possible place to get any kind of return. As you start to see some normalization, some return to any kind of a yield, you're going to see dollars coming out of the market. So it's going to be an exacerbating effect. I think some of this air that's coming out of the balloon is going to continue to come out for some period of time. And we've got to be realistic about all of this and not just this knee-jerk response. I'll tell you this, as a Republican, as a conservative, as a taxpayer, as an American citizen, as a veteran, as a father, as all these things combined, I speak for a whole lot of people, I think, who are some variation of the same thing. We're offended at the idea that our government, regardless of who's in charge, regardless of which party, continues to jam debt down the throats of the next generations. It's irresponsible. It's not what people were sent here to do. There's not one person who runs on this platform, and yet they come to Washington and they suddenly become, I don't know what siren song is played in this town, but the bottom line is they come here and suddenly a little bit of other people's money is just the right solution, and it's not. We need to stop spending. We need to cut entire facets of government out.
But that's politically unpopular, Governor. I mean, Republicans recoil at it. Democrats recoil at it. This whole budget deal is about busting caps that were hardly caps before so that everyone can get their goodies.
Again, everybody wants the sugar now.
Absolutely.
Everybody wants it now. But it is at a certain point, and this is where, again, I look to those conservative members in the House in both parties, frankly. This should not be a political issue. Hold the line. Don't stick it to our children and grandchildren at a price that's more than they'll be able to bear.
Governor, thank you very, very much. We needed that bipartisan hit there. Governor Bevin, be well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.